Listen closely. Life in its essence is simple. Life itself is not designed to be a battlefield or a maze filled with endless obstacles. It flows naturally, effortlessly, like a river finding its way to the ocean. So, do so many of us feel like we are constantly swimming upstream, exhausted and overwhelmed? The truth is, the difficulty in life is not out there. It's in here, in the way we think, in the stories we tell ourselves, the mental frameworks we hold on to. Life is easy. The challenge is that we make it hard. First, our perception shapes reality. Two people can experience the same event, but feel completely different about it. Why? Because our minds assign meaning to what happens. If you believe life is a struggle, every challenge becomes a mountain. If you believe life is an opportunity, every challenge becomes a stepping stone. Second, life gives us choices, yet many of us freeze in the face of uncertainty. Instead of making conscious choices, we blame circumstances, people, or bad luck. The power lies in realizing that we are always choosing how we respond. When you step into your power to choose, the difficulty diminishes. Third, complexity is a trap. We love to overthink, analyze every tiny detail, and create elaborate problems. But life's core problems are often simple. What do you want? What's stopping you? What's the next best step? You focus on simplicity over complexity, life becomes manageable. Fear is a major contributor to the unnecessary hardness of life, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. These fears create mental barriers called limiting beliefs. These beliefs keep you stuck in a cycle of struggle because you are not allowing yourself to move forward freely. But here's the secret: taking responsibility transforms your experience. When you stop blaming and start owning your life, you reclaim your power. Responsibility isn't about criticism, it's about recognizing you have the ability to change your story. Finally, it's all about mindset. A mindset focused on struggle keeps you locked in hardship. When you shift your focus to growth, solutions, and gratitude, you tap into a natural flow of ease and joy. Life is not against you, it is for you. So today, I challenge you, simplify your thinking. Take ownership of your choices. Break free from fear and limiting beliefs. See challenges as opportunities. And most importantly, remember that life is easy. You're the one making it hard. Make the decision now to live with flow, with purpose, with the knowledge that every moment offers you the chance to choose ease over struggle. The way we perceive life is the single most powerful force shaping our experience. It is the lens through which we interpret every event, every interaction, every challenge. Life itself is neutral. It simply happens. But it is our mind, our perception, that colors life's canvas with emotions, judgments, and meanings. This is where the entire game changes. You realize that your perception shapes your reality. You begin to see that life is not inherently hard or easy. Instead, it is the stories and meanings you attach to your experiences that create either struggle or ease. Think about a simple event. Losing your job, for example. One person might see this as a catastrophic failure, a reason to despair and believe they are unlucky or not good enough. Another person, faced with the exact same situation, might see it as a chance to reset, new possibilities to reinvent themselves. The external event is identical, but the internal experience is worlds apart. This difference is entirely a product of perception. This principle applies to everything: relationships, finances, health. Personal, we are constantly filtering our experiences through our beliefs, past conditioning, and emotional responses. When those filters are negative or limiting, life feels like a battle. When those filters are open, curious, and positive, life flows with grace. Why do we tend to adopt negative perceptions? One reason is survival. Our brains evolved to scan for danger and protect us from threats. This negativity bias means we are wired to focus on what's wrong, what might go wrong, how to avoid pain. While this served us well in primal times, it now often causes us to see challenges as insurmountable and life as a difficult struggle. The key is to consciously reframe our perceptions. Instead of allowing your mind to default to "this is impossible" or "this is unfair," ask yourself, what is possible here? Or what lesson is this situation offering me? This simple mental shift rewires your brain and opens new pathways for creativity and resilience. Another important aspect is understanding that your perceptions are not facts, interpretations. Just because you feel overwhelmed or inadequate does not mean you actually are. Your mind can create stories that feel real but are not reflective of objective reality. Recognizing this allows you to step back and question your automatic thoughts. Practicing mindfulness is one effective way to gain awareness of your perceptions. When you observe your thoughts without judgment, you start to see patterns emerge. Repetitive stories you tell yourself that limit your possibilities. Once you see them, you can choose to change them. Moreover, perception shapes not only how you experience events, but also how you act. If you perceive a situation as hopeless, you are likely to give up or avoid action. But if you see it as a challenge or opportunity, you are motivated to engage, problem, solve, and persist. This connection between perception and behavior creates a self-fulfilling cycle. Positive perceptions lead to empowered actions, which produce better outcomes, reinforcing positive perceptions. Negative perceptions do the opposite. Consider the role of gratitude in shaping perception. When you focus on what you have rather than what you lack, your mind shifts to abundance. Gratitude rewires your brain to notice positive details and opportunities, even in difficult circumstances. This doesn't mean ignoring problems, but rather balancing your view with awareness of what is working in your life. This balanced perception reduces unnecessary stress and opens the door to creative solutions. It's also important to remember that your perception is influenced by the company you keep, the media you consume, and the environment you live in. Surrounding yourself with positive influences and limiting exposure to negativity can help you cultivate a more optimistic and balanced outlook. Changing perception is not about ignoring reality or pretending everything is perfect. It's about choosing the frame through which you view reality, choosing empowerment instead of victimhood, growth instead of stagnation, curiosity instead of fear. It is a practice, a skill you develop over time with intention and patience. Ultimately, you understand that your perception shapes your reality. You reclaim your power. You realize that life is not a fixed set of external circumstances controlling you, but a dynamic experience shaped by your mind and choices. This insight is liberating because it means you have the ability to change your life, not by changing everything around you, but by changing how you see and respond to what's already there. So the next time life feels hard, pause and ask yourself, am I seeing this clearly, or am I coloring it with fear, doubt, or frustration? What if I chose to see it differently? What new possibilities would open up? This question is the doorway to a life that feels easier, more joyful, aligned with your true potential. In essence, mastering your perception is mastering your life. It's the foundation upon which all other changes are built. When you shift your perception, you shift your reality. That is the first step toward making life not just easier, but truly extraordinary. Every moment in life presents us with choices, even if it doesn't always feel that way. From the smallest decisions, what to eat for breakfast, to respond to an email, to the biggest ones, what career to pursue, how to handle a difficult relationship, our lives are shaped by the choices we make. Yet, paradoxically, many people live feeling like life is happening to them as if they are powerless victims of circumstance, trapped by fate, bad luck, or other people's actions. This sense of powerlessness is one of the biggest reasons we make life harder than it needs to be. Understanding the power of choices like discovering a secret door to freedom. It's the awareness that no matter what external conditions you face, you always have the ability to decide how you respond. You may not control everything that happens. You do control your attitude, your actions, and your focus. This simple truth, when fully embraced, can transform your experience from one of struggle to one of empowerment. The challenge is that many of us confuse choice with control. We think we need to control every outcome perfectly to succeed or be happy. When things don't go as planned, we blame external factors instead of looking inward. We say, if only my boss were different, or if only I had more money, or if only circumstances were easier. While external factors certainly influence our lives, they don't determine our happiness or success. Real power lies in how we choose to interpret and respond to those factors. Choice is also about recognizing that an action is itself a choice. Deciding to do nothing in the face of a challenge or opportunity is a decision with consequences. Sometimes, the hardest choice is to take responsibility and act, especially when fear or uncertainty tries to hold you back. But action, even imperfect action, breaks the cycle of helplessness and moves you towards solutions. Of the most powerful ways to reclaim choice is by shifting from a victim mindset to a creator mindset. The victim mindset says, life happens to me, and it strips away agency. The creator mindset says, I have the power to shape my life, and it opens up possibilities. This mindset shift is not about denying hardship. It's about refusing to let hardship define or limit you. When you embrace the power of choice, you become the author of your story rather than a passive reader. You start asking questions like, do I want to create? What's the next best step I can take? How can I learn and grow from this situation? These questions focus your energy on solutions and growth rather than blame and frustration. It's also important to understand that choices come with responsibility. Freedom isn't just about doing whatever you want. It's about owning the consequences of your decisions. This responsibility might feel heavy at first. It's what transforms you from a bystander into a leader of your own life. Responsibility gives you control over your future because it means you're actively participating in shaping it. Power of choice extends to how you manage your emotions and thoughts. You may not be able to control every feeling that arises, but you can choose how long you stay stuck in a negative emotion and what you do next. You can choose to focus on solutions instead of problems, on what you can change instead of what's out of your hands. This choice of focus changes the entire emotional climate of your life. Another aspect is choosing your associations carefully. You have the power to decide who you spend time with, whose opinions you value, and what kind of information you consume. Surrounding yourself with people who uplift and inspire you rather than drain or discourage you supports your ability to make empowering choices. It's natural to feel overwhelmed by choices sometimes, especially when life feels complicated. In those moments, remember that you don't need to solve everything at once. Choice doesn't mean perfection. It means doing your best with what you have in the moment. Sometimes the best choice is to pause, breathe, and take one small step forward. Choosing to live consciously means waking up each day with awareness of the power you hold. It means refusing to be controlled by habits, fears, or external pressures. Instead, you decide how to show up, what attitude to bring, and what actions to take. This daily practice of conscious choice builds momentum toward a life that feels easier, fulfilling, and more aligned with your deepest values. Remember, no one else can make these choices for you. No circumstance, no person, no event can remove your power to choose your path. When you fully accept this truth, you unlock a wellspring of strength and freedom. Life becomes less about enduring and more about creating. The harder life seems, the more important it is to claim this power, because it's in those moments that choice matters the most. So As you move forward, ask yourself often, what choice am I making right now? How is this choice shaping my experience? And how can I choose differently to create a life that feels easier, richer, and more joyful? Your power to choose is the most valuable resource you have. Use it wisely and watch how your life transforms. One of the biggest reasons life feels hard because we often make it more complicated than it truly is. We have a natural tendency to overthink, to add layers of unnecessary worry and confusion, and to create elaborate mental stories that make problems seem much bigger than they are. This habit of overcomplication turns straightforward challenges into mountains and simple decisions into paralyzing dilemmas. But life itself is fundamentally simple. The complexity we experience is largely self-created. Think about how a child approaches problems. Children tend to see things in a direct way. If they want something, they ask or find a way to get it. If something doesn't work, they try another approach. Minds aren't burdened by what ifs or worst case scenarios. They don't create tangled webs of doubt and fear that freeze their action. Somewhere along the way, many of us lose this natural simplicity and replace it with mental clutter. You break down most problems, they can be understood in clear, manageable terms. What do you want? What's preventing you from getting it? What's one small step you can take right now? These questions cut through complexity because they focus on the essentials. Yet, instead of answering these questions, many of us get stuck in overanalyzing and seeking perfect solutions, which rarely exist. Complexity often masquerades as intelligence or thoroughness. We think that the more we analyze and gather information, the better decisions we will make. While it's important to be informed, there is a point where gathering more data simply creates confusion and indecision. This paralysis by analysis stops us from moving forward and keeps us locked in a state of overwhelm. Another way we add complexity to life is by trying to control things that are outside our control. We think that if we can just control every variable, life will be easier. This illusion of control creates tension and frustration because the reality is that some things will always be uncertain or unpredictable. When we resist this fact, we create internal conflict and stress. Simplicity means focusing your energy on what truly matters and letting go of distractions and unnecessary worries. It means accepting uncertainty and being willing to adapt rather than trying to force perfect outcomes. Simplicity invites action instead of hesitation. When you embrace simplicity, you begin to see life through a clearer lens. Problems become puzzles with pieces that can be arranged step by step rather than insurmountable obstacles. Decisions become choices among fewer options rather than overwhelming floods of possibilities. This clarity frees your mind and gives you confidence to act. One practical way to cultivate simplicity is by breaking big goals or problems into smaller, actionable tasks. Instead of trying to solve everything at once, focus on the very next step you can take. Small, consistent actions build momentum and reduce the mental burden of facing a huge challenge. Simplicity also involves prioritization. Everything deserves your time and energy. Learning to say no to distractions, people, or activities that don't align with your values or goals is a powerful tool to keep your life focused and manageable. When your priorities are clear, decision-making becomes easier because you have a guiding compass. Another factor that complicates life unnecessarily is our tendency to catastrophize, imagining worst-case scenarios and expecting problems to spiral out of control. This tendency amplifies fear and stress, which cloud judgment and drain energy. Training your mind to stay present and grounded helps counteract catastrophizing. Ask yourself, is really happening right now? And is this situation as bad as my mind is making it? These questions bring you back to reality and reduce emotional overreaction. Simplicity does not mean ignoring complexity where it exists. Rather, choosing to focus on what you can influence and letting go of what you can't. It's a mindset of clarity and efficiency rather than confusion and overload. When life feels complicated, ask yourself, am I making this harder than it needs to be? Is the simplest, most effective action I can take right now? What worries or thoughts am I holding onto that don't serve me? These questions help you peel back the layers of complexity to reveal the straightforward core beneath. Ultimately, simplicity is a form of respect for your time, your energy, and your well-being. It's a recognition that life's greatest growth and joy often come from focusing on the basics and trusting yourself to handle challenges one step at a time. You choose simplicity over complexity. You create space in your mind and your life for creativity, peace, and progress. You reduce overwhelm, increase clarity, and open the door to a more enjoyable and sustainable way of living. The easier you make life, you realize it was easy all along. You were just adding layers that didn't need to be there. Fear is one of the most powerful forces shaping human experience, yet it is also one of the greatest sources of unnecessary difficulty in life. When fear takes hold, it distorts our perception, clouds our judgment, and limits our potential. What exactly is fear? At its core, fear is a biological and psychological response designed to protect us from danger. It is an ancient mechanism that helped our ancestors survive threats in their environment. However, in modern life, much of our fear is no longer about immediate physical danger, but about imagined threats, fear of failure, rejection, loss, or the unknown. These fears often give birth to what we call limiting beliefs, deeply ingrained thoughts, and assumptions that tell us who we are and what we are capable of. Limiting beliefs act like invisible barriers, preventing us from taking risks, pursuing goals, stepping into our full potential. They whisper things like, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve success, or I'll never be able to change. The impact of these beliefs is profound because they shape not only our actions, but also the way we interpret life's challenges. The reasons fear and limiting beliefs make life harder than it needs to be is that they operate mostly beneath our conscious awareness. Often don't realize that our doubts and anxieties are not absolute truths, but rather stories created by our mind. These stories are often inherited from childhood experiences, cultural conditioning, or repeated failures. Because they feel familiar, they gain power over us without being questioned. To break free from fear and limiting beliefs, the first step is awareness. Becoming aware of the fears that drive your thoughts and behaviors is essential. This means paying attention to moments when you hesitate, when negative self-talk arises, or when you avoid opportunities. Ask yourself, what am I afraid of here? And is this fear based on fact or assumption? Often, fear magnifies problems far beyond their actual size. Another important insight is that fear itself is not the enemy. Fear, in its pure form, is a signal, a message from your mind and body that something important is at stake. It's the way your system prepares you to respond. The problem is how we interpret and react to fear. When we let fear control us, we shut down creativity, block action, and isolate ourselves. When we use fear as information, acknowledging it without letting it dictate our choices, we regain control. Limiting beliefs can be challenged and reshaped. This is not about wishful thinking or ignoring reality. It's about questioning the validity of your internal narrative. For example, if you believe I'm not capable, look for evidence that contradicts this belief. Moments when you succeeded, learned new skills, or overcame difficulties. These counterexamples weaken the power of limiting beliefs and open space for new, empowering beliefs. Building new beliefs requires repetition and reinforcement. Just as fear-based beliefs formed over time, positive beliefs grow stronger when you consistently affirm your capabilities and take actions aligned with those beliefs. This might involve setting small goals, celebrating progress, and surrounding yourself with people who believe in your potential. The most effective tools against fear and limiting beliefs is action. Fear often thrives in uncertainty and inactivity. Taking even a small step forward breaks the cycle of paralysis. Action creates momentum and generates new experiences that challenge old fears. With each step, confidence grows and limiting beliefs lose their grip. Mindset also plays a critical role. Adopting a growth mindset, a belief that abilities and intelligence can be developed through effort, helps transform fear from a stop sign into a guidepost. Instead of fearing failure, a growth mindset encourages learning and resilience. It reminds you that setbacks are part of progress, not proof of inadequacy. It's important to be compassionate with yourself throughout this process. Fear and limiting beliefs are part of being human. Everyone experiences them to some degree. The difference lies in how you respond. Instead of beating yourself up for having these fears, treat them as invitations to understand yourself more deeply and to grow stronger. Another way fear complicates life is by making us focus on worst-case scenarios. This tendency to imagine catastrophic outcomes increases anxiety and often leads to over-preparation or avoidance. Learning to stay present and grounded helps combat this. Techniques such as mindfulness, breathing exercises, journaling can help calm the mind and create space for clearer thinking. Finally, remember that fear and limiting beliefs are not fixed. They are mental patterns that can be rewired. When you commit to facing your fears, questioning your stories, taking empowered actions, you reclaim your freedom. Life stops being a struggle against invisible chains and becomes an adventure of discovery and growth. In summary, fear and limiting beliefs are major reasons we make life harder than it needs to be. They distort our perception, hold us back from taking risks, and drain our energy. But through awareness, questioning action, and mindset shifts, you can overcome these barriers. This process is not always easy, but it is deeply rewarding. The freedom on the other side of fear is a life lived fully with courage, joy, and authenticity. One of the greatest turning points in life comes when a person decides to take full ownership of their experience. Until that moment, it's easy to drift through life reacting to circumstances, blaming others for our situation, or waiting for things to change on their own. But real transformation begins when you stop pointing fingers outward and instead look inward, asking yourself, part of this can I take responsibility for? This shift may not seem dramatic at first, but its impact is powerful. Responsibility is not a burden, it's a liberation. There's a common misunderstanding around the word responsibility. Many people associate it with blame or guilt, as if taking responsibility means admitting fault. But true responsibility has nothing to do with shame. It's not about beating yourself up. It's about recognizing that you have the ability to choose your actions, responses, and mindset, regardless of what life throws your way. Responsibility is the gateway to freedom, because it means you're no longer at the mercy of external conditions. You embrace ownership, you begin to realize that your results, good or bad, are the product of your choices, habits, and mindset. This doesn't mean everything that happens in life is your fault. Life is unpredictable. Things happen beyond your control, but how you respond to what happens is always within your control. That response is your responsibility. In fact, responsibility can be broken into responsibility, your ability to respond with intention, wisdom, and strength. When people avoid responsibility, life becomes harder. They wait for someone else to fix things, hoping external changes will create internal peace. But change doesn't work that way. No one else can live your life for you. No one else can heal your wounds, pursue your dreams, or break your patterns. That's your job. The longer you wait for someone else to take control, the longer you remain stuck. Ownership is empowering because it gives you the driver's seat. Instead of saying, this is just how life is, or I can't help how I feel, you say, I choose how to move forward. I choose how to think, act, and grow. That choice gives you leverage over your circumstances. Even when the situation isn't ideal, your mindset determines whether it will break you or build you. Taking ownership also leads to clarity. When you stop externalizing your struggles, blaming your partner, your past, your job, or the economy, you start to see what you can control. Maybe you can't change your boss, but you can change how you communicate. Maybe you can't change the past, but you can change the story you tell yourself about it. Maybe you can't avoid pain, but you can grow stronger because of it. That's the power of ownership. It turns obstacles into opportunities. Responsibility also builds confidence. When you take ownership of your life and see results, even small ones, you begin to trust yourself. You start to believe that your actions matter. And that belief becomes fuel. You stop living in fear of what others think or waiting for permission to act. You start creating your life instead of reacting to it. Another benefit of responsibility is that it strengthens your integrity. You become someone who follows through, holds themselves accountable, and who doesn't make excuses. People respect those who own their actions, both when things go well and when they don't. Responsibility is a sign of maturity, leadership, and authenticity. It builds strong relationships because people can trust that you're honest and dependable. But taking ownership isn't always easy. It requires humility to admit when you've made a mistake. It takes courage to face uncomfortable truths. And it demands consistency to keep showing up even when it would be easier to blame or quit. But over time, this habit becomes a way of life. You stop fearing problems because you know you're capable of handling them. You stop feeling powerless because you know your decisions create your direction. The best places to practice responsibility is in your daily habits. How you eat, sleep, move, think, speak. These are choices you make every day. When you take ownership of these areas, your life changes at a foundational level. You no longer feel like life is happening to you. You feel like you're actively shaping it. That sense of alignment between your values and your actions creates a deep sense of peace and purpose. Responsibility also means being kind to yourself. It's not about being perfect. It's about being committed. When you slip, you don't shame yourself. You own it, learn from it, and get back on track. This mindset builds resilience because you stop fearing failure. Instead, you see every experience as feedback, a lesson to guide you forward. Ultimately, life becomes easier, not when everything goes your way, but when you stop resisting responsibility, when you stop waiting for someone to save you. You stop blaming the past or waiting for the perfect moment. Life becomes easier when you say, this is mine, I own it, and I have the power to change it. There is a silent battle happening within most people, a tug of war between struggle and flow. Many live their lives believing that success must come through constant effort, that happiness is earned only after hardship, and that if something feels too easy, it must not be valuable. This belief turns life into a grind. What if that entire approach is flawed? What if life isn't supposed to be a constant uphill battle? What if the struggle isn't noble but optional? The truth is, a shift in mindset can completely transform your experience of life. You move from a mindset of struggle to a mindset of flow. Everything changes, not because your external circumstances suddenly become perfect, but because your internal relationship with them evolves. You begin to operate from a place of clarity, trust, presence rather than pressure, resistance, and control. Struggle often stems from resistance. We resist reality, resist change, resist discomfort, and even resist ease. We're taught that the harder something is, the more meaningful it must be. Wear stress like a badge of honor. But this mindset creates friction. It turns growth into punishment and delays joy until some distant finish line. Flow, on the other hand, is a state of alignment. It's when your actions, thoughts, emotions are moving in the same direction. It's when you are fully present, engaged, and responsive, not reactive. Flow doesn't mean the absence of effort, but it means effort without force. To enter flow, you must first release the belief that struggle equals value. You must allow yourself to experience ease without guilt. This begins with awareness. Notice the thoughts you have when things start to work out for you. Do you immediately think, this is too good to be true? Or when something comes naturally, do you discount it, thinking it shouldn't be this easy? These are signs of a struggle-oriented mindset, a deeply rooted belief that ease must be earned through difficulty. Life doesn't have to be a constant test. In fact, when you're in flow, your results often improve because you're acting from a place of calm and trust, not fear and desperation. Shifting from struggle to flow also requires trust. Trust in yourself, trust in timing, and trust in the process. This doesn't mean being passive or leaving everything to chance. It means letting go of the need to control every variable and allowing space for spontaneity, creativity, and intuition. When you trust yourself, you no longer need to prove your worth through stress or burnout. You know that your value is inherent, not dependent on how much you push or suffer. Another key part of this shift is learning to listen to your internal signals. Struggle often ignores your body's needs, your emotional cues, and your energy levels. It's the mindset that says, keep going no matter what. Flow honors those signals. It says, let's move forward. Let's do it with awareness. When you're in flow, you still face challenges, but you're not consumed by them. You deal with problems, but they don't define your experience. You're present with what is rather than constantly wishing things were different. Practicing presence is one of the most effective ways to enter a flow state. Struggle is usually past or future focused. We stress about what went wrong or worry about what might happen next. Lives in the now. When you bring your attention fully to this moment, this task, this conversation, this breath, you unlock a deeper level of performance and peace. You stop rushing toward outcomes and start appreciating the process. Also comes from clarity. When your values and goals are clear, you don't waste energy second guessing yourself or chasing approval. You act with intention and your path becomes smoother because it's aligned with who you are. Struggle thrives in confusion and misalignment. When you don't know what you truly want, everything feels heavy. Clarity brings lightness and direction. Powerful mindset shift is to replace the question, how hard do I need to work to earn this? With how can I make this easier without compromising the result? This question doesn't promote laziness. It promotes efficiency, creativity, respect for your energy. High performers in every field understand the value of flow. They don't just work hard, they work smart. They know when to push and when to pause. Gratitude is another access point of flow. When you focus on what's working, what you appreciate, you naturally move into a state of openness and abundance. Struggle often comes from a place of scarcity, believing there's never enough time, money, love, or opportunity. Gratitude shifts your attention to what is already available, and from that space, new solutions and ideas emerge effortlessly. At the heart of it all, moving from struggle to flow is about letting go of internal resistance. It's about trusting that life doesn't need to be a constant fight. It's recognizing that your best work, your greatest joy, and your deepest fulfillment often come when you stop forcing and start flowing. Life still demands effort. Effort rooted in flow feels energizing, not exhausting. You don't have to earn ease through pain. You can choose ease by shifting how you think, how you act, and how you respond. When you do, life opens up, not because it gets easier, because you do.